ADHD and grief. That is the topic that we're going to be talking about today. Hi, welcome back to ArdelleVision, where it is my hope, Ardelle's hope, to inspire you to envision more for your life. On this channel, for those of you that are new here, we talk about all things ADHD, mental well-being, and personal development. If you want to hear a little bit of an update on my life, I'll save that to the end of the video for those of you that care to listen, care to hear. All of you have been very compassionate and gracious to me the past few years because I have dealt with grief. And so to start off, grief affects people obviously on an emotional level. People that are grieving experience like the full gamut of emotions ranging from anger, sadness, guilt, confusion, and sometimes even relief, whether it be like watching somebody kind of suffer for a long time and there's like a mix of emotions, like relief that your loved one is no longer suffering, both and at the same time. It's just like a soup of emotions, like mine's like Campbell's soup of emotions. It's been a lot for me. I'm just going to be honest. Another thing that people experience when they lose a loved one is physical symptoms like headaches, fatigue, insomnia, lack of appetite, not really wanting to eat. And so obviously if you're not nourishing your body, that'll then lead into more issues. Another thing that people experience with grief is the cognitive impact that it has on you when you're going through grieving a loved one. And that is difficulty concentrating, difficulty making decisions, ruminating thoughts, obviously constantly thinking about the loved one, obviously constantly thinking about if it could have been different if I did this, like the bargaining kind of thing. Maybe I could have saved them, or maybe I could have stepped in, or maybe it would have been different, or I should have said this. Just like constantly thinking about what you should or shouldn't have done, especially the way the loss happened, if it was sudden or if you knew it was coming and you didn't do as much as maybe you felt like you should have. And I can identify with the next symptom of grief, which is social withdrawal. You basically just isolate. You want to be left alone. And with all those factors, there's so many other components that go into grief that I've looked into. For example, it impacts your performance at work. It impacts your loved ones around you. Everybody's grieving differently. If you're in a family household, it impacts your relationships, how you interact with your friends, like how they were or were not there for you based on spoken needs or unspoken needs. My work performance in general, definitely, like I couldn't even focus. I couldn't think. I couldn't concentrate. I did not care. And it felt like it was unfair to my coworkers who I did care about at the time, but I also couldn't get past my own grief. I couldn't even see straight. It really does take its toll on you. So in general, grief is a process of healing that is over time. It can change in varying degrees. It can change for different people for the duration of the intensity, like how you adapt to the loss that you've experienced, and especially the waves of emotion that come out of nowhere. And you don't even know, because when enough time has passed and you think that you're past the loss, and you look back and you realize, oh, that probably was because I'm still grieving. Like I know my last video was about anger. I had a lot of misplaced anger, which I hadn't normally experienced. And it took me a while to identify that I had just anger in general about how the whole experience was handled. In America and the Western countries, grief is not acknowledged as much as it can be in other countries. It's not like in America, we don't celebrate the Day of the Dead. I feel like it's just like pull your bootstraps up and get over it. And you're just supposed to pretend that you're okay when in reality you're not. There's just not as much acknowledgement for loss of loved ones in the Western world that I've looked into. There's no 3 days of mourning and people coming around and gathering. I know that we have memorial services, and I'm not saying that this is true for everybody in the Western world, but there is not like a set in stone pattern the way there used to be, or in other cultures that aren't westernized, that acknowledge grief in a way that makes the person that experienced the loss feel seen, doesn't make them feel seen, surrounded, supported in like a community of people that just are there for you. They can link arms with you and just carry that weight off your shoulders to just be with you while you grieve, so you can really have time to grieve. You have to just get back to work, back to life, back to being normal, almost to like placate other people or make other people feel okay, like, because it's awkward. And after losing my parents, I still struggle sometimes to make sure I'm supporting other people that have experienced loss. So I'm not trying to act like I'm perfect. So with the grief factor out of the way, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below if there's something you want to add to any of this conversation. I feel like we're always having a dialogue and we're always learning from each other, so I always appreciate it. So obviously people with ADHD and the symptoms of grief, there's a lot of overlap. trouble focusing and low attention span, a constant need to move your body or to be doing something to distract you from your pain, or vegging out and shutting down and just like scrolling the internet for hours or watching 2020 for like weeks on end. I am guilty as charged. Distancing from peers or interests, which we've all been there with ADHD, like isolation is a typical thing with ADHD, poor school or workplace performance. I mean, come on. Difficulty learning new materials. Like I feel like ADHD symptoms and grief symptoms, like they're literally super, super similar. Impulsivity, making rash decisions, not thinking clearly, and then you look back and you're like, what the heck was that? Like, I feel like I've made so many decisions that were just like, I did not know how to stop, take a breath, take a step back, and really assess the situation because my grief just put my brain in overdrive. And obviously trouble eating and sleeping, forgetting to eat, not being able to go to bed, sleeping all day, not taking care of yourself, breakdown of habits. And that obviously will then play into just causing your ADHD to be worse. Like for me, I got off track with taking the vitamins that I usually take. I usually take vitamin D, vitamin B, my fish oil supplements, all of things like that just deteriorated. I was not consistent with it, which just was basically a snowball effect, like a downward spiral of just disintegration of my life and the habits that I'd worked so hard to understand, to build up with my ADHD. Like learning about my ADHD was really amazing. And then just with the loss of both my parents, like I didn't even have time to even stop and think that maybe my ADHD symptoms are amplified right now, and that's why things just felt so crazy. I was just in a vortex. I was in a tunnel, and things were just going so fast. Life was going so fast, and sometimes life would stand still, and I would numb out, which is a whole nother thing about grief. Like you just numb out, and you just try to do, and you just live life at such a fast pace, you're not even having time to think about how sad you are, and then you look back and you're like, whoa. So let's talk about support for people that are grieving. Let's help each other grieve better, because God knows I need to do that too, for other people and for myself. For starters, allow yourself to grieve. You're grieving. Everybody's grief is different. Allow yourself however much time you need and however you need to grieve. Give yourself permission to have time to grieve. The second most important thing I've found with grief is to find support, whether it be friends and family or professional help. For me, obviously I had my sisters. We all rallied around each other whenever our parents passed away, but also finding really close loved ones that knew the loved one that you lost or understand your heart and can just be like, literally just be there with you. They don't have to do anything but just be company for you. As hard as this might seem, like, reach out to people, even though you feel like they should know. I'm speaking from experience. Even now, I feel like I don't know. So I feel like after the loss I've experienced, I'm a little more intentional with seeking people out to just check in on them, even a little bit after the fact of the loss or well after the fact, like, hey, just checking in, make sure you're doing okay. Because unfortunately, I've known people that have had loss. I don't want to be that person that ignores it just because I don't know if I should or shouldn't. I'd rather do than not have done it at all. So seek support. I would recommend seeking professional support. For me, I joined a new church, yay! And they had grief share. They had a grief share class, and then they also had a sudden unexpected loss class, and I signed up for both of them. And I almost felt like I wasn't qualified because so much time had passed and I thought that I was getting better. But it was so insightful, and I learned so much about grief and how it affects your life in such an impactful way. And just that's where I learned that we don't really grieve properly in the United States. And again, I'm not saying everybody doesn't do it properly, but from my experience, it was a very awkward time, especially in 2020, because that was when the world was shut down. But those classes were really helpful, and also just listening to other people's stories and realizing you're not alone. Even though I didn't know these people, I was in a grief share class with other people and just listening to their heartbreaks. I didn't discount mine either, but we were all just listening ears to hear each other's pains. And it just kind of it was a nice support, and it was nice to know that other people get it, because other people can't get it if they haven't experienced it. So if you seek out a grief support group, it's really, really impactful. If I can find it, I will link the grief. It was an online course that I paid through my church to go through, but they have videos and online resources. Maybe you can find some videos on YouTube just to look into it, but I definitely recommend researching grief if you can do that, and then finding support in communities online or at your church or various sundry things like that. But definitely, I highly, highly recommend seeking out support groups. It really, really helped me. Like, I literally didn't even think that I was going to cry, but I broke down crying. And that was what made me realize that the grief had impacted my life in a bigger way than I realized. Another thing that you can do to help yourself through grief, and this one might be a little bit hard, especially for us with inattentive ADHD, is to take care of yourself physically. Make sure that you're eating well, because what you eat definitely impacts your gut health and your brain health. Make sure that you're getting some sort of regular exercise or activity. I know that that's hard, but exercise is another really helpful thing for mental health. And then also make sure that you're resting well if you're one of those people that are constantly on the go. For me, I was like easily able to rest, but I know that some people just like run past their grief and don't take time to rest well, and also don't give themselves permission to rest. Like, they feel like they should be doing more, they should be exercising every day. It's like, maybe you need to take a little rest. Another healthy thing that you can do to express your grief is to find healthy, creative ways to express your emotions, whether it be journaling or art or meditating or walking in nature, and participating in things that like help you remember your loved one, which kind of leads into the next one, which is to create like memorials or celebrations of the life of the people that you love. For example, when my dad passed away, there's a certain firework that always reminds him of him. So every 4th of July, we still get the same firework because there's a really lovely memory attached to that experience. And for our mother, we celebrate her. We always get her favorite carrot cake. My sister, for example, has started to take up a craft that my mom was really gifted at, which was painting Christmas windows. And we used to always go with her and paint those Christmas windows with her when we were children. And so after my mom passed away, my sister, her way of kind of like memorializing our mother was to actually start a business and create art by painting Christmas windows and fall windows and things like that. And I've gone with my sister to do those, to the point where I started doing them as a side job. And it felt like I was honoring my mom. And I always just found myself obviously thinking of her and how proud she probably would be of, especially my sister, but me and my twin sister as well. And it's just been a really unique way of kind of like staying connected to our mom. Another thing I like to do is I've created a playlist of music that my mom loved, and then another one that my dad loved. And I like to just, every once in a while when I'm thinking of them, I'll just put on my mom playlist or my dad playlist and listen to music that makes me think of them. So I don't know, it's just really sweet, and it's a nice way to remember them by. And obviously, I think I've mentioned this already, but another way to work through your grief is to understand your grief. The same way that understanding your ADHD helps you manage your ADHD when you're grieving. Looking into the process of grieving can help you understand maybe what you're going to be going through, what you're getting into. So when you're experiencing it, you can identify like, oh, this is okay. This is just me grieving and this is normal. Like, I wish I would have looked into grief earlier. I did 2 years, like after my dad died, like 6 months later, I looked into it and I identified that that's why my work performance was not that great, because I had been judging myself based on that. Like, why am I not better? Why am I not performing? And then I read an article about it and I was like, oh, that's why. Another thing is to maintain routines. I know that that's easier said than done, and I'm speaking from experience, but it also gives you a reason to just stay present within your life so everything just doesn't derail. I do admit that some of my routines, for example, my YouTube channel, did not stay consistent, but I held on to fight to keep consistent with that because it was something that mattered so much to me, and it was something that mattered a lot to my mom. The routine of like just my skincare and things like that, that was something that I was like, I don't want to just neglect myself fully. And it kind of was like a finger on the edge of the cliff that I was like, I'm not going to fully let go of my life. And I'm really glad that, although I didn't know it at the time, that habits and routines crumble apart when you're going through grief, and that's totally normal. But trying to just care for yourself the best way that you can, even though you're sad, and don't try to push past the feelings, but with the feelings with you, take them along with you and go wash your face and go take care of your house and try to do a few chores every day. So it's not just that like the depression piles on you so much that you look around and realize like it feels insurmountable, everything you're up against, on top of the fact that you missed your loved one that might have been the person that helped you mow your lawn, that might have been the person that helped you do your taxes and things like that. And if you need to reach out to somebody that understands what you're going through and a loved one, we've talked about this already, definitely do that. But try to not neglect your personal routines as much as possible. Speaking of somebody with ADHD, I know that that's hard for us in general, but I do believe that we can build habits, especially if you've read the book Atomic Habits. It's like one little micro habit grows. And then once it's kind of part of your routine, like obviously we brush our teeth every day. Definitely try to like hold on to those habits. And of course, for me, I feel like one of the best things that you can do when you're going through grief is to seek professional help. I know I've already mentioned the grief classes that you can take and support groups. I highly recommend seeking professional help, therapy, counseling, things like that. Somebody that can talk with you through everything that you're going through, somebody that's like clockwork that you know that you can go see every single week. I know that not everybody agrees with therapy, and like I have friends for that, but this person is a trained professional that's there to guide you through life and not tell you what to do, but to listen to you in a professional capacity, be there for you. I was in therapy leading up into the day my mom died. I actually missed my last therapy session, and I'm really grateful for that. And then I picked it back up later on, and I was really grateful for that. And I was able to talk about my experiences. I just really recommend that. There's more that all of us can do to help ourselves when grieving. Obviously, ADHD symptoms in general are difficult, but just know that grief alone is a trauma. Loss alone is a trauma. When you lose a loved one, it is not a fun experience, depending especially on the way it happened, who it was that it happened to, how your connection with them, but everybody's grief is different. Don't judge yourself for how you should or shouldn't handle it. There's no roadmap for grief for you or for somebody else that lost this, like a mutual loved one. It's just not linear. It's going to be all over the map, but I definitely recommend allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to grieve. It's just not going to be the same for everybody. And there's no end to it. It's never just going to like end. It's going to be kind of a part of your life the rest of your life. I know some people say that it never gets easier. For me, I feel like it just evolves and it changes. And it changes you. And I keep the memory of my parents alive, and they motivate me to want to keep going. And the memories of my mom and dad, my dad was super creative. He was a musician. He was an artist. He was a writer. My mom was an artist herself, and she was also really resourceful, and she was always doing, and she was always doing things. And I could hear her in my mind telling me in that tone, like, just get it done. Her and my dad's memory keep me inspired to keep going. My dad was an amazing businessman. He was always pounding the pavement. He was a salesman for a newspaper. He was always number one. Like, I just keep them alive in my memory, and I feel like they're still alive with me, and their memory and their love goes on and stays with me. Ooh, that tickled an emotion. With that said, if you're here at the end of this video, I'm now going to talk about what I've experienced the past 3.5 years. So this is a recap of the past 3.5 years, just to kind of like put a bow on everything, because I feel like I've been spitting out videos inconsistently for the past few years, and I've been I've shifted my life in a way that's simpler so I can get back to focusing on creating content, and which has been my dream. But with that said, my mom passed away in 2020. Leading up into her death, I was posting 2 videos a week. And when she passed away, that was kind of when my channel started gaining traction. And it was a big blessing. But I remember just sitting there on the couch, numbing out, watching a docuseries on Netflix, just watching my channel grow. And I tried to be consistent after that, and then I shut down. And then I tried to be consistent after that, and then I started making rash decisions. I had a friend that helped me get another job in a real estate office. And when I was in that office, it was really trying. It was really nerve-wracking. My mom had passed away at this point, but my dad was still alive. And so I would see him once a week. He lived in St. Louis. He had moved here from another state. Some people ask me why I don't talk about him that much. And I'm like, I don't know. My mom was just more into my channel, and she was more consistently in my city up until that point. But my dad, he was my champion too. Like, he believed in me so much. And so he was a big supporter of me getting the new job. He was excited for me. The sales job kind of was a little difficult. It was really difficult for me to navigate the change of the new career. And so I was really, really, really focused on it. And I got sick back to back, and then my dad died. And that was in November. And so I remember that 2 days later, I was like, I gotta get back to work. And it was a weird way. Like, I was just not wanting to lose this new job. And so I remember pushing my emotions down about my dad. I was numb. It was also really it was just so overwhelming. I can't even explain how overwhelming it was. And so I really tried my hardest to be consistent with that job and to stay and bootstraps on, because it was a real estate office. I think it tried to make me think that I needed to be stronger than I was. I had a friend at the job say, like, if I were you, I'd ask off for a month. But I was like, no, I'm fine. And I wasn't fine. That was when the underlying anger started kicking in. I was frustrated. I was taking my anger out on all the wrong people. And because I was working so hard at that job, I didn't have any bandwidth for creativity in my YouTube channel. But I feel like it was just so many decisions back to back. Eventually I stepped away, I came back, I tried to do real estate as a real estate agent instead of working in the office as admin. I changed positions. I was helping with people's social media instead of my own social media. I was getting behind other people's missions and other people's causes instead of my own. I really tried to do the real estate thing. I was really convinced that I'd be good at it, but it ended up being really, really hard. And I realized it wasn't satisfying for me. And that's one thing with ADHD. I know we quit a lot of things, but I'm like, hey, I tried. I gave it a good try and it wasn't for me. And so it got to the point when the grief was so compacting. The real estate just ended up not working for me. Although I did it and my clients loved me, I realized I was waking up every day with anxiety. There was too much unknowns. There was nothing that was within my control. So much was in other people's hands that I was like, I don't like this. So as much as I wanted to get out of the service industry, I was like, you know what? Like, I was so happy when I was working at my one job and working on my YouTube channel and creating content and getting to know all of you and you getting to know all of me and all of us kind of like helping each other understand our minds and our worlds better and inspiring each other to do more, grow, and things like that, that I was like, I decided, and it was painful and it broke my heart because I don't like breaking other people's heart, which broke my heart, which I don't think I broke their heart, but stepping away from the real estate office was really hard for me. And I'm now back at my service job. And I'm now, like, I feel like I've minimalized my world after the implosion and the explosion that losing my parents had. I feel like I just literally went in one big long 3-year circle back to square one. And I was watching a TV show recently, The Kardashians, and I really hope you don't judge me. It's my guilty pleasure, so whatever. Chloe was talking about when her dad died, that she said it was like 3 years of just like mayhem. And she's like, I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel till 3 years later. And I was like, that's literally how I feel. I know it's been 2 years since my dad died. I definitely have grief about it all, taking these classes and everything, all of it. Like, so much has helped me understand what I went through, what I'm going through, what I have to look, not forward to, but what I know that like is kind of ahead of me. I just do feel like I'm finally in a place where it's no longer right there, if that makes sense. It's kind of like there, it's like it's with me, and like I now can like, I guess like befriend my grief, know that it's never gonna go away and I'm gonna have sadness, and just like kind of sit in it and be okay with it instead of trying to like numb out or like make 50,000 decisions in a day. Up until getting back to my serving job, I feel like I finally can like breathe again. So that's a lot. That's a lot of like me sharing my life and my world. Thank you for everybody that's always checked in on me. Thank you for everybody that's asked if I'm okay. I'm like so good right now. I'm in a really good place. And it really is just grief. Like that's really all that's happened is I lost my parents back to back. It was really hard. Obviously with ADHD and grief, it's like a kaplowy, like perfect storm of just difficulty. I think it really just derailed my ability to function on a normal level, whatever that is. That is the video I got for you. I have so many more coming, so many more planned. I have a lot of excitement in me for this channel. We've made it to 22,000 subscribers. Please obviously remember to subscribe if you haven't already. If you like this video, give it one big thumbs up. And you all must know by now that you are in my prayers, and I will see you next time. Bye.